Hey fam, welcome back to another episode. If this is your first time here, welcome. If this is your second or 12th episode, hi, thank you for always coming back. And of course, as I start this, the ravens are flying, so many of them overhead. And as I'm recording this, it's January 2nd, and I have so much to share, and yet not a whole lot to share all at the same time. So much has happened in the last 24, 48 hours, and yet nothing has happened at the exact same time. It's kind of funny how that works. But something that's been coming through a lot is this wanting to be present in my current life, in this current time in my life. And I know I've talked about it on a few of my previous episodes here, but it's really been at the forefront recently. And I feel like because we're shifting into this world of presence, right? It's actually where we're supposed to be, is in a state of presence. We're supposed to be in the here and now. And as someone who has been chasing and rushing and going after something for so long, I'm finally in an energy of like peace and contentment and not needing to be anywhere else but right here. And it's so funny because as someone who has been traveling nomadically for the last 2.5 years, I'm finally grounded in a space where, I know I've mentioned this before, but like I have zero desire to travel. And I think it's not only because I am so focused on getting grounded, but because I'm so grounded in my body and not needing to be anywhere else except for right here. And I trust that if and when I need to move, I will be provided everything that I need in order to make that the smoothest, easiest process. But I'm going to share a little bit about my mushroom journey the other night. A friend of mine and I both took mushrooms on New Year's Eve, and we just hung out here at the house, and we didn't do a hero's dose, but it was enough that it brought so much clarity and so much play and joy, and we laughed for hours. And it was probably one of the best trips that I've taken, or been on, I should say. And it's so funny because set and setting is literally everything about taking mushrooms. And there's so much wisdom that came through, so much awareness, so many things were cleared. And now I'm in this integration phase where it's so funny, there's like literal flocks of ravens that are going by, which, oh, and we're burping, that's good. Okay. Flocks of birds are always a sign of level up for me. One thing that came out of this trip is sharing my wisdom with the world and what I've learned, but doing it from a place of what I've learned, not a place of carrying the stories on and letting that energy live on. I know that'll make sense to whoever it needs to. And something that really came through was this wanting to be present, needing to be present, but also just so at peace with being present. And I think that that's something that we all struggle with in a society where we are constantly on the go. Everything is ever evolving and changing, and really change is the only constant we have in this life. However, it's so important to slow down and be in the process of the change rather than trying to jump and quantum leap and get to the next thing. Because really all we have is right now. We don't have yesterday. We don't have tomorrow. We don't have 10 years from now. We literally only have right now. And it was so funny because there was several times during this trip where I had slowed down so much and was so present. I was so hyper aware of what was going on. And it was so cool because I would have a thought and the fireworks from Camp Pendleton were going off. And every single time I had a thought that was like next level, if you will, a firework would go off outside the window. And I thought, this is it. This state of peace, the state of bliss, the state of joy. This is what I am meant to be. This is the frequency of which I am supposed to live at. And how so many of us chase after that feeling our entire lives, when really if we just slow down and we're present, we meet that feeling a lot of times without substances and all these other things. And there's so much beauty in the present moment, and a lot of us bypass it looking for this next big thing to happen, when really there's so many things that are happening right now where we can find the beauty in. And it's all about your perspective, which is one of the new tattoos that I've gotten. Because if you're constantly chasing after something, you are chasing your tail, like the spiral. But if you stop and you observe everything going on around you, you will realize there's so much in the present moment for you that you might not have never seen if you hadn't have stopped. One of the things that we were laughing about during this trip is that, Crystal was sitting on one side of the couch, I was sitting on the other, and I had a clear view of the window, and hers was a little bit from a different angle. And I just kept talking about how I was living in Candyland. Oh my God. There must be 20 plus birds flying over my head right now. Wow. They just keep going. Wow. That was cool. So funny, I looked up and it was 8:05 and then 8:08. 8:05 is part of California, which is where I am right now. Super interesting. I love juicy moments like that. They just keep going. Whew. There's a lot of energy in the air. There's like 4 that just dipped down right in front of me. Oh my gosh. That totally threw me off for a good reason. So I'm gonna try and get back to the message. Literally just externally confirmed everything that I was talking about. Crystal and I were sitting on the couch, and I remember looking over to her at one point, and I was just laughing because I'm like, not a care in the world. I was sitting in Candyland. And I looked over, and she is struggling with this blanket. I'm trying to talk to her, but she's struggling, trying to sit and put this blanket on top of her. And it was such a metaphor for where we were at in our process of everything. And I was like, dear God, are you okay? I was just sitting back watching it all happen, and it was so funny because I was on fire. Literally my skin was on fire. And I didn't have a blanket. I didn't have anything on me. And so I had nothing attached to me. In a sense, I had nothing holding me back. And it really made me aware of the fact of how much I have released this year. And what was so interesting is I was brought back to when I took mushrooms back in March, and I had just done a couple of micro trips, but it was so interesting because during those micro trips, I had this vision of everything and everyone leaving my life. And I didn't know what that meant at the time. I literally had a vision of me, and at the time I was living out of my car, but when I took the mushrooms, I was staying at a friend's place, and in my vision, I had left my keys in my car purposely. I had the clothes on my back, which is so funny because it was clothes that I had owned at the time, and I walked away. I walked away from my car. I walked away from all my belongings in it. All I had was the clothes on my back, and I felt so free. And I also didn't see any of my current people in my life in that vision. They had all dissipated, and I was like, well, how is that going to happen? How am I going to stay in contact with these people, right? I was having visions of me being out in the middle of the desert without any cell service or without a phone, literally without any of my belongings. And I was like, how is anyone going to get a hold of me? How am I going to live? How am I going to survive? I was having all these fears that were playing out and arising. And I remember getting done with that trip and messaging my then friend, and I was expressing how much I loved her, and she was like, are you okay? Is something wrong? And I explained, I had this trip and everything dissolved. Everything and everyone in my life dissolved. And it was so funny because within a week and a half to 2 weeks after that, another friend of mine came to me and said, I think you need to sell your car. I think you're basically the guidance that was coming through was for me to sell my car. And I was like, what? Sell my home that I'm living out of? How am I going to get around? I was so engulfed in this vision of my car was my only freedom. All the things I had defined me. All the people that I surrounded myself with defined me. So many external things. And funny because my word for the year was freedom. And this was part of the freeing process. I love when we get burps for confirmation. And once I committed to, I had my moment of oh fuck, I literally need to get rid of everything. And what's funny is I had already started slowly getting rid of stuff, but this was the big push. And I didn't know what that meant at the time. I didn't know what that was going to look like. And then the next 6 months played out, or 9 months played out, and it was a fucking whirlwind. And within a month and a half of me having that trip, 2 months really, I sold my car and started living out of a bag. And it's wild to look back at that time and be like, wow, when I was really in it, it felt so hard. It felt like all these roadblocks, all these obstacles, all these things were happening, and I wasn't in flow. I wasn't allowing myself to be in flow. I was trying to force something. I was trying to just get it done, right? From this masculine perspective of, I just want to be in Canada. I don't want to be dealing with this anymore. When really it was all asking me to just be present because that part of my life was ending. That version of me was dying. Metaphorically speaking. And I just kept chasing. I just kept running, which was a huge theme. Not only over the course of my life, but something that I have worked on letting go of over the last year. And when I finally let go of that, there were so many other things that came with selling the car. that came from that vision. And it's wild that that came back to me in this trip. I was like, holy shit, I totally forgot about that. And it was a huge reminder for me to be present, to take in the small things. You know, not that I ever regret anything in life, because I know that everything happens for a reason, but there has been moments, especially now as I'm, regurgitating this to all of you, is that I wish that I was more present. I wish that I had taken more time to enjoy the simpler things. And however that was meant to look, again, I understand everything happened exactly as it was meant to, but it's so crazy how we look back and be like, man, that was like a fleeting fucking moment that I just I was clawing my way out of because I didn't want to be there. And in fact, I was being asked to be there. Because that old version of me was clinging on to so many things that she thought she needed. And now here I am on the other side, and my word going into this year was bliss. And it's so interesting because I hit that state of bliss the other night. And it was such a wild feeling to just be. To not care about anything but being in the present moment. That's literally what we came here for. To find pleasure in the little things. And to know that there's so much beauty in the little things. There's beauty in the big things too, but the more that we can find joy and appreciate what's right in front of us, the more will be reciprocated back to us. Something else that came up in the process of all of this, being present, right? Just so hard to do in a society that asks us not to be present, that asks us to book 6 or 12 months ahead, to do all these things. And I can't tell you, my friends and I used to joke that the P word, right, planning, was not in my vocabulary because it was so, made me crawl out of my skin. And I've gotten more comfortable with it, right? Like I can make a plan if I need to, but I don't do it unless it feels so good in my soul and it feels so aligned that I can follow through with it. Because number one, that's not fair to me, and that's also not fair to whoever else is a part of that plan. But also planning is for a future moment. And I'm trying to be right here, right now. And so, yes, have goals, have dreams, have a destination perhaps, or somewhere that you want to go. And without trying to control it, just being open and allowing things to flow to you and through you. Because the more open you are and the less you give a shit about how you're going to get there, the more present and at peace you can be. Everything just falls into place. And I have been in this energy of feeling like I need to do so much. And yet at the same time, I'm like, what is there to do? We're in winter in the Northern Hemisphere here, and this time of year is always my go. This is always my let's move, let's close one door and open up another. And something that was coming through earlier today is like, I feel like I'm in this hallway of, wanting to close my old door and open the new, but it's closing the door to a house. It's not just closing the door to a room anymore. And opening up a new door to a new house. Funny, because I just got this little snail tattoo the other day. And it was a reminder of coming home to myself, but also home is wherever I am. And, if you've been following along, I've been seeing snails everywhere, from little baby snails to big snails. And it's so interesting to me because it's like they carry everything on their back, but also it's a reminder to slow down and be present and be at peace, and that it's going to be okay no matter where you are on your journey. And the bear has been something that's been coming up for me, an archetype, if you will, and how a bear goes into hibernation this time of year. And, you know, we just had the new year yesterday, and there's so much that comes with the new year, right? From an American perspective, or however you want to put it, right? That it's actually not the start of a new year. It's not for another month and a half. So that feels a lot like collective energy to me, but also on a personal level of shedding all these ways that I've been like needing to transition and to move and run during this time of year, when really it's just asking us to be present. It's asking us to hibernate. It's asking us to go inwards, to know so deeply what we want. And it's funny because the word plan comes up again. Like, my dreams need a practical plan, and yet I'm also so at peace with being in this present moment and knowing that that will present a next step for me exactly when it's meant to. And that a lot of this old way of being is really shedding. Like, this trip was different in terms of like, I had so much fun and so much clarity and so many realizations, but it didn't feel as extreme as this walking away and letting go as of the material aspect as it had in the past. This is more on like almost feels like a DNA or structure level, if you will, of kind of like a Rubik's Cube is what I'm seeing. And it's like flipping and trying to make all the parts and pieces fit into this new version, right? 22. It's all about the balance, right? Something else that came up during our trip was that I just kept saying what is real, everything is fake, everything is made up, right? Everything. And it's not the first time that that's come up for me. It's been something that's been on my mind for a long time, over the last like year or two. And it's a wild place to be when the world around us is so focused on so many things, and we hold so tightly because we need that logic, we need that physical proof. When really, what is actually real? I hear so many creators talk about so many things, and I'm like, is that actually real? Is that actually true? One thing that came through the other night was being the teacher versus embodying, and I realized I've been in this teacher role for so long. I've been the full-time healer for so long, and nothing has taken off the way that I thought it would. I'm like, I have all these beautiful skills and gifts that I want to share with the world, and yet I also just want to be, and know that there will be opportunities that are presented to me to share those gifts with the world, and that I don't have to go chasing after them. And that's so contrary to everyone and everything in this life and the way that I have been raised. And this next cycle, this next chapter, this next book, whatever you want to call it, is about embodiment and just being. Like, that is our purpose in this life, is to just be, whatever that looks like for you. And it's such a mind fuck, right? Because we have to have a roof over our head, we have to have all these external things, and at the same time I'm like, I know I am fully provided for. Kind of goes back to, you know, I talked the other day about this, about having, you know, people needing a certain number in their bank account and all these things, and I have been stripped of all that. And it's funny because my nervous system doesn't light up the same way about money like it used to. It feels so much more neutral now, and understanding it's an energy, but also understanding that the grander scheme is that I'm completely taken care of in this moment, and I don't have to worry about how something is going to turn out or needing to pay for something or whatever it is, knowing that in that moment, whatever it is will be provided for to me. We give so much of ourselves and our lives to external things, to needing to be someone for someone else, to needing to do someone to provide a service, to do X, Y, and Z, which can sometimes, a lot of times, take us out of flow state. Needing to plan takes us out of flow state in a way, rather than just being open to what is happening or what can happen. And yeah, I just keep coming back to that feeling of being in that moment on that trip. Fireworks were going off as I'm having these realizations and just being in such a state of bliss right here, right now in this moment. And like, yes, it's Candyland, right? I call it Candyland. But it's what I have created for myself. Knowing that my reality is not going to be the same as someone else's, but my hope is that I inspire others to create their own reality. Knowing that there's so much going on in the world, but also that that exists for other people and it's not right here in front of me, which is also a wild place to be. But that this is what we actually came here for. To be in a state of peace, to be in a state of presence. Because that's all we have. And this shedding and letting go is so bizarre yet so beautiful. I literally said coming out of the trip, like, I'm excited for this integration. I'm curious to see what comes from it. What new things arise, because one thing that I will say is, like, even while we were in the trip, and something that I've noticed recently is I've become so hyper aware of loops. They're so in my face that I cannot unsee them. And it is a very clear choice. It's so clear. I'm like, oh, we're looping. Oh, feels like we're looping. And I'm calling it out as I see it now, rather than just sitting back and letting it happen. I am sitting back and being present, if you will, and allowing things to happen, but seeing where the loops are and being able to close those, that is part of being present. And allowing for change. So yeah, I hope that you can find time to be present. Obviously, you're here with me, so thank you for being here. But I hope that you can carve out some time and space to be present, or create reminders throughout your day to be more present, because that is truly what we came here for, because all we have is right now. We don't have 20 years from now. We don't have 10 years previous to now. We literally only have this right now, right here moment. So if you're still here with me, thank you for sharing this time with me, for being present. And yeah, I'm wishing you so much joy and bliss going into this new year. Maybe take some mushrooms if you feel called to it. They definitely are a beautiful tool that we've been given here in this life, and I'm so grateful for them and for all the teachings and the wisdom and opportunities to allow me to embody this next version, this next level. All right, fam. I love you so much, and I'll see you on the next one. Mwah.